She mocked me at my ex's funeral, but the lawyer's envelope changed everything. The church smelled of lilies and polished wood. I hadn't seen Mark, my ex-husband, in over 10 years. But when I heard of his passing, I felt a strange pull to attend the funeral. He had once been my whole world. I walked in quietly, wearing black, hoping to stay unnoticed. That's when I saw her, Vanessa, his wife, dressed like she was walking a runway instead of mourning. She noticed me instantly, her lips curling into a smirk. Vanessa always had a talent for cruelty, even when Mark and I were still married. I found a seat in the back, away from the grieving family. But before the service began, she approached me, heels clicking against the marble floor, her eyes glinting with malice. "I'm surprised you showed up," she said loudly enough for others to hear. Her words drew glances from the guests. I swallowed my pride and replied softly, "I came to pay my respects." She leaned closer, her perfume overpowering. "Respects? To the man who moved on from you to me. You must be desperate for attention." My cheeks burned, but I stayed silent. It wasn't the time or place for a fight. During the service, I kept my head down, memories of Mark flooding back, our early love, the laughter, the nights we stayed up talking until dawn. Then came the arguments, the betrayal, the divorce. Vanessa had been part of that betrayal, though she never admitted it. Sitting there, I couldn't decide if I was grieving the man he was or the years I'd lost. When the service ended, people moved toward the exit. I tried to slip away, but Vanessa blocked my path. She gave me a sugary smile and said, "Don't worry, dear. Mark always told me you'd end up alone. Seems he was right." Her voice was full of venom, and a few nearby guests gasped. I felt the sting of her words, but refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. That's when the lawyer stepped forward. I recognized him instantly, Mr. Harris, Mark's old friend. He greeted Vanessa politely, then turned to me with a small nod. "Ms. Turner, I have something for you," he said, pulling a thick envelope from his briefcase. Vanessa's smug expression faltered for the first time that day. "What's this about?" Vanessa demanded, her tone sharp. Mr. Harris ignored her, handing the envelope to me. "It's from Mark," he explained. "He instructed me to give this to you after the funeral." My hands trembled as I took it. The paper felt heavy, almost warm, as if it carried the weight of something more than money or words. Vanessa's eyes darted between us, her confidence crumbling. "Why would he leave her anything?" she asked, her voice rising. People began to turn their heads, sensing tension. I didn't answer, I was too stunned. Mark and I hadn't spoken in years. Why would he think of me in his final days? Mr. Harris leaned in. "I suggest you open it in private," he whispered. Vanessa tried to grab it from me, but I stepped back quickly. My heart pounded. This was no ordinary envelope, felt like the start of something that could change everything. I could see Vanessa's breathing quicken, her composure slipping away completely. As I walked toward the exit, clutching the envelope, whispers followed me. Vanessa stood frozen in the aisle, her fake smile gone, replaced with fury and something else, fear. I didn't know what Mark had left me, but in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever it was, it had the power to wipe the smirk off her face forever. Outside the church, the cold wind whipped against my face. I found a quiet bench under an old oak tree, far from the crowd. My hands were still trembling as I slid a finger under the envelope's flap. The seal broke with a soft snap. Inside, there was a handwritten letter and a smaller sealed document. Mark's handwriting was instantly familiar, slanted, messy, but unmistakably his. I unfolded the letter carefully. "If you're reading this, I'm gone," it began. "I know I hurt you. I can't undo the past, but I want to make things right in the only way I can. Vanessa doesn't know everything. She doesn't deserve everything. You, however, do." My breath caught. What could he possibly mean by that? The letter continued. "Remember the house by the lake, the one we dreamed of retiring in. It's yours now. Along with the bank account I kept separate. Vanessa has no claim. I never stopped feeling guilty for how I left you. Maybe this can be my apology." My eyes blurred with tears. The house by the lake. It had been our shared dream. I clutched the letter to my chest, the world around me fading. For years I'd told myself I'd moved on, but Mark's words reopened, Old wounds yet also healed some. He had thought of me in his final moments, not with bitterness, but with remorse. That meant more than the property or money ever could. Her eyes glistened, not with grief, but with rage. You think you've won something? You'll see I'll challenge it. I'll take it all. I met her gaze without flinching. You can try, I said quietly, but maybe ask yourself why he didn't trust you enough to leave it in your hands. That made her falter for just a moment. Mr. Harris appeared again, stepping between us. Mrs. Langford, he addressed Vanessa coldly. Your husband's will is airtight. What he left Miss Turner is hers alone. Interfering will only embarrass you further. Vanessa opened her mouth to argue, but closed it when she saw the pitying looks from nearby guests. She spun on her heel and stormed back toward the parking lot, her composure shattered. I stayed still, letting the reality sink in. Mark had given me more than material possessions. He had given me a final piece of closure. A way to reclaim a part of myself I thought was lost forever. I looked down at the letter again, my fingers tracing his familiar scrawl. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the heavy ache in my chest. Instead, I felt a strange lightness. Mark was gone, but somehow, in his final act, he had returned a part of me that I thought had died with our marriage. 2 days later, I drove out to the lake house, clutching the keys Mr. Harris had given me. The road wound through tall pines, and when the house finally came into view, my breath caught. It looked just as it had in my memories, white shutters, wraparound porch, the soft shimmer of water beyond. Inside, everything felt untouched by time. The scent of cedar lingered in the air, and the worn leather couch we'd picked out together still faced the fireplace. I ran my fingers over the mantel, spotting an old photograph of Usme laughing, Mark looking at me like I was the only person in the world. That night, I sat on the porch, listening to the gentle lap of water against the shore. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. But that peace didn't last long. My phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. Enjoy it while you can. It won't be yours for long. I didn't need to guess who sent it. Vanessa wasn't going to let this go. I knew her type. She thrived on control, on winning, and losing to me, especially in public, must have burned like acid. But I also knew Mark's letter wasn't just sentiment, it was protection. He'd prepared for her greed. The next morning, I called Mr. Harris to let him know about the message. He sighed. She's been calling my office nonstop, demanding details, he said. I've advised her she has no case, but people like Vanessa don't need a reason, they just need a target. His voice softened. Be careful. Sure enough, a week later, a sleek black car pulled up outside the lake house. Vanessa stepped out in designer sunglasses, holding a manila folder. She strutted up the steps without knocking. I'm giving you one chance to hand it over before this gets ugly, she said, sliding the folder across the porch table. Inside the folder was a stack of papers, her so-called legal claim. I skimmed them and almost laughed. Half the pages were irrelevant printouts. The rest were baseless accusations. This isn't worth the ink it's printed with, I said, sliding it back, and you know it. Her lips curled into a cruel smile. Maybe not, but I can make it messy. Drag your name through the mud. People will believe what I tell them. I met her gaze, unflinching. You've already lost. All you can do now is humiliate yourself. Try. And her smile wavered. She leaned closer, her perfume overpowering. He loved me, you know, she whispered, as if that would hurt me. I didn't flinch. Then why didn't he trust you? I asked softly. Her eyes flickered just for a second with something I'd never seen before. Doubt. Without another word, she turned and walked back to her car, heels clicking against the wood. I watched her drive away, unsure if this was truly over, but knowing one thing for certain, I wasn't going to be intimidated. Not anymore. Mark had given me the strength to stand my ground. I thought Vanessa's retreat meant she'd given up, but 2 days later, my phone lit up with notifications. Social media was flooded with posts accusing me of stealing the lake house from Mark's grieving widow. Her friends were commenting, strangers were sharing, and my inbox filled with hate. At first, the words stung. People I didn't even know called me selfish, a gold digger, a fraud. But as I read through them, I realized something important. Not one of them had any proof. They were parroting Vanessa's venom, and truth has a way of outlasting lies. I called Mr. Harris again. He suggested we go public with documents, the will, and Mark's letter. Silence only helps her, he warned. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote my own post. I included a photo of the lake house, the letter in Mark's handwriting, and the will itself. The post went viral in hours. Comments shifted from outrage to sympathy. "She's lying," one woman wrote under Vanessa's rant. "This proves it." Messages of support poured in, along with stories from others who had faced similar smear campaigns. Vanessa, of course, doubled down. She posted videos, tears glistening, claiming the letter was forged. But when Mr. Harris publicly offered to have the documents verified by a handwriting expert in the court, her tone changed. She didn't respond. A week later, I was walking through town when I spotted her across the street. She looked smaller somehow, like the fight had drained her. Our eyes met for a brief moment. There was no hatred in hers, now just exhaustion. She crossed the street slowly, her steps hesitant. "I didn't think you'd fight back," she admitted quietly. "Most people don't. When I push hard enough." I didn't know whether it was an apology or a warning, but I stayed silent. After a pause, she said, "He must have loved you more than I thought." Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I stood there for a long moment, unsure whether I felt victorious or just free. Back at the lake house that evening, I watched the sunset turn the water gold. For the first time in years, I let myself cry not from pain, but from relief. Mark had given me more than a house. He'd given me closure. The fight was over. The shadows of the past had lifted, replaced by the gentle glow of peace. As the first stars appeared over the lake, I whispered a quiet thank you to the man who had once been my great love and to myself, for finally standing tall. In the weeks that followed, life began to feel normal again. I planted flowers along the lakefront, repaired the old dock, and invited a few close friends to visit. Laughter returned to the house, mixing with the sound of water lapping against the shore. Still, there were moments when I'd catch myself looking toward the driveway, half expecting Mark to walk in with that crooked grin. Grief is strange, it fades, but never fully leaves. Yet this time it was softened by gratitude. One afternoon, I received a letter in the mail from an unfamiliar address. Inside was a short note from Vanessa. It read, "I've decided to move on, keep the house. I won't bother you again." No apology, no warmth, but still, it was something. I didn't reply. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. Instead, I tucked the note into the back of the same box where I kept Mark's letter, to very different reminders of the same chapter in my life. As autumn arrived, the lake transformed into a mirror of crimson and gold leaves. I often sat on the porch with a cup of tea, feeling the quiet strength that comes from surviving a storm and finding calm on the other side. One crisp evening, a neighbor stopped by. "You know," she said, "Mark talked about you a lot. He said you were the one person who truly understood him." Her words caught me off guard, bringing tears to my eyes. That night, I lit a candle by the window and let it burn until dawn. It was my silent way of telling Mark that his love hadn't been in vain, that the life he wanted for me, peaceful, strong, and unshaken, was now real. The online storm eventually died down completely. People moved on to other dramas, and the lake house was once again just a home, not a headline. I learned the beauty of anonymity, of not being defined by someone else's story. Winter came, and with it, a blanket of snow that turned the lake into a frozen jewel. I found comfort in the quiet routines, fire in the hearth, long walks, cooking recipes Mark once loved. They no longer made me sad. They made me feel connected. By the time spring returned, I was ready to fully embrace my new life. I didn't just survive what Vanessa tried to do. I reclaimed my voice, my dignity, and my future. And deep down, I knew Mark would have been proud. One morning, as I walked along the thawing shore, I noticed something caught in the reeds of a weathered bottle. Inside, there was a piece of paper, damp but still legible. It was a page from Mark's old journal, likely blown away years ago. The note was simple. "If you're reading this, it means life has taken me somewhere far from you. But promise me never let anyone make you feel small. You're worth everything." My hands trembled as I read it. I sat down on the shore, the cold water lapping against my boots, and let the tears come. Not from sadness alone, but from the deep relief of knowing his love had always been steady, even when life wasn't. That night, I framed the note and placed it on the mantel above the fireplace. It became my daily reminder life could twist, hurt, and test me, but it could never break me. Vanessa's shadow no longer lingered. Her attempts to humiliate me had only revealed her own emptiness. I no longer felt anger toward her, only a distant pity. I started writing again, not just about Mark, but about the quiet strength that comes from survival. My words began reaching people online, strangers who messaged me saying, "Your story gave me hope." In a way, Mark was still giving through me. Every line I wrote, every person who found courage in my words, was part of the legacy he left behind. One evening, I stood on the dock, watching the sun set in a blaze of orange and pink. "We're okay now, Mark," I whispered. "You can rest." The lake was calm, the air soft, and for the first time in years, my heart felt entirely light. I wasn't defined by my pain anymore. I was defined by what I'd chosen to do with it. And so, I stepped into the future without fear. I had survived the betrayal, the public shame, and the grief. What remained was a quiet, unshakable truth. I was free, and I was enough.